The issue on the table is, why is Hamilton teaching people more about American history than other historical texts? Now, I'm sure we've all heard of Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda's love letter to the forgotten founding father,
Alexander Hamilton.
Hamilton fever has swept its way across the globe, akin to Beatlemania, with all ages becoming obsessed with it and fighting for the hottest ticket on Broadway, when tickets are available. But it's not just entertaining. If we go back to when Lin-Manuel Miranda conceived the idea, it comes from a historically accurate place. Years earlier, around 2008, Lin-Manuel Miranda happens to read Ron Chernow's 2004 biography entitled Alexander Hamilton.
And he told me that Lin-Manuel had read my Hamilton book and it made an enormous impression on him, and he wanted to meet me. So I went to a matinee of In the Heights one Sunday, and he invited me backstage, and I said to him, so I gather my book made an impression on you. And he said, Ron, as I was reading it on vacation in Mexico, and as I was reading it, hip-hop songs started rising off the page.
And the idea of a musical representation of Hamilton's story was born. The musical makes Hamilton's life story into a melodrama and gets audiences to invest into theatrical versions of historical figures through rap and hip-hop. And for the most part, it speaks the truth. Let's take a look at lyrics from Yorktown.
The Battle of Yorktown, 1781.
Monsieur Hamilton!
Monsieur Lafayette!
In command where you belong!
Are you saying no sweat? We're finally on the field. We've had quite a run.
Immigrants,
we get the job done.
The opening line immediately tells us the event and date and introduces us to relevant figures in the battle, all of which are true. Now, if we look later in the song, at Hercules Mulligan's verse, whilst it is hard-hitting and rooted in hip-hop, it's also very factual. Mulligan was in fact a tailor who spied on the British government and smuggled information for the Americans. However, this is almost disguised in wordplay. Furthermore, the lyrics include the Sons of Liberty, and a quick Google search will tell you this. Therefore, whilst one may need to research further in order to understand some lyrics, the way in which Mulligan's verse is performed, with a rough voice which sounds aggressive and sharp choreography, audiences and listeners can understand that Mulligan is part of a group that can be violent and are fighting against something. In just 4 minutes, we are introduced to the main figures, ideas, and dates of the Battle of Yorktown. Now, if we compare it to an article, for example this one, essentially the first paragraph here can be summarised in 2 lines from the song. That's not to say that the song teaches everything there is to know about the event, but it gives a starting point for further research, as well as indicating extra information through choreography and performance. But that does not mean it's completely historically accurate. This is perpetuated in Miranda's use of his own dramatic license. He presents Angelica as,
I'm a girl in a world in which my only job is to marry rich. My father has no son, so I'm the one who has to social climb the one.
Well, actually, Philip had 15 children. Talk about the creative license that you took. Bending.
I forgot.
Facts. Simple as that.
I forgot, and I think my brain wanted me to forget because it's stronger dramatically if societally she can't marry him.
Right.
And in reality, she was married when they met.
Right.
She was married when Hamilton came into the Schuyler sisters' lives. But I thought, to me, Helpless and Satisfied is a microcosm of the whole story, which is, depending on who tells the story, even of this morning, of you and I talking. Right. You're going to give one version of the story, I'm going to give one version of this story. Right. And history is completely different based on our accounts.
Therefore, Miranda puts his own spin on it to emphasise issues relevant to us and encapsulate the idea that history can be told differently through different people. There's an awareness that he isn't accurate, but he defends it to make the story more commercial. Thus, it is wrong to take Hamilton as a piece of history. In fact, it should be viewed as a tool for learning that inspires further research. This is evident in the 3 forms of entry point to Hamilton. Firstly, historical accuracy, as explored earlier. Then its reference to hip-hop, and finally, its genre of a musical. Miranda stated that the life of Hamilton is the life of someone who embodies hip-hop, and references to hip-hop are rife in Hamilton, while still being relevant to the historical context. A great example of this being the song
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
It's the 10 dual commandments.
which not only recounts the duel between John Lawrence and Charles Lee in under 2 minutes, but also makes explicit reference to the notorious B.I.G.'s
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's the 10 crack commandments. Why?
But why is the reference to hip-hop helping to get more people learning about and involved in history? If we look at the VARK model, there are 4 types of learning: visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. I want to focus on auditory learning. As the name suggests, auditory learners learn best while they are actively listening. They much prefer to ingest information through audio or video clips, or by discussing the topic. So, essentially, Hamilton could be seen as an oral learning device, as a lot of its songs set out the date, relevant historical figures, and summarises the historical event in a fictional way to explain and rhyme effectively to become memorable. Even the jingle of Alexander Hamilton is difficult to forget. However, Lin-Manuel Miranda takes the idea of learning through rap and hip-hop further by directly engaging young people in history through the Hamilton Education Programme. It encourages students to take on primary sources and find a creative way to perpetuate and argue points on the historical event, just like Miranda did when creating Hamilton. Whilst at its core Hamilton may not be wholly factual, young people, teachers and education programmes can use it as a springboard of creating and legitimising new ways of learning about history, because Miranda's method can be easily applied across many different topics and disguises learning under hip-hop. Finally, the fact that Hamilton's very form is a musical conjures images of its wide-reaching potential. I've never seen such a diverse room of ages anywhere else but a theatre. Furthermore, Miranda explicitly wanted a diverse cast, which not only breaks the omission of people of colour on Broadway, but also includes people of colour in history, when they are often left out. As Tommy Kail suggests, Hamilton is a story about America then, told by America now. Therefore, Hamilton has even further reach as people are able to see themselves reflected in the narrative and thus can reclaim a part of history. We can see that there are many entry points to Hamilton that coerce you into becoming interested in the history of it. And whilst it has been proved time and time again to not be fully historically accurate, I believe it acts as an entry point to historical knowledge, as well as creating new ways to present historical events and perhaps perpetuate Broadway musicals as creating an option for learning as well as entertainment. So, next time you watch Hamilton, don't throw away your shot to learn a little more about America's forgotten founding father.
Not throwing away my shot.